everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubitz, and we're thrilled to be with you on this holiday getaway day here on NoFilter.net and Caffeine TV and all the other various outlets that are featured, courtesy of Joe Manuel and Eric Burns and all of the good people that are behind the NoFilter.net program. Thanksgiving happens to be, I would imagine it's the case for a lot of people. I know that we have Christmas holidays coming up, and a lot of people like to celebrate New Year's, and they figure, wow, 2024 is going to be our year. But because this is the first and the first of many, many great meals that you'll be consuming over the next several weeks, which leads us to the idea that it makes good sense to just set your scale back 10 pounds right away. Do it now, people. Get right up out of your chairs. Go into wherever you happen to keep the scale if you have one. Set it back 10 pounds. And this way, you'll be able to confront all of your problems that you're facing after Friday and realize, okay, so I haven't finished the leftovers yet, but when I do, there's going to be some work to do. Is that not the biggest lie in the world? I'm starting a diet tomorrow. You don't have to deal with this.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, because I live it every day. I think I grew up in a house where my mom was always doing that. And I'm like, I'm just going to watch what I eat year round because my wife does that too. And she looks great. She doesn't need to. But again, I don't know, a woman, I don't know what it is, but she always has to be going on these fad things. And I'm like, okay.
Well, it's legendary. And I've talked about it over the years in many shows that I've been on. And I've had many, many great Thanksgiving celebrations and meals. My dad was a tremendous cook, except when he decided to no longer use the oven. He had moved to South Florida with my mom. This is going back about 30 or 40 years ago. And he decided for some reason that in the apartment that they were living in, the condo they were living in, they didn't want to turn on the oven. So my dad, who was known and had a tremendous reputation, I mean, this guy was up there. He won an award on the Julia Child show. If you're not familiar with Julia Child, one of the great chefs, one of the original cooking shows, he took second place in a contest for an original recipe that he submitted. And it's too bad that it wasn't in the modern era because he probably would have been good for like $500,000 at second place. But instead, he got like an oven that was dysfunctional, and it sat in our garage forever in our home on Long Island at that time. But he was well known, world renowned for his Thanksgiving dinners. Even the relatives that hated us wanted to come over and sample some of the fanfare. My rich Uncle Harry, for example, was not a big fan of the family. He always liked to be boisterous and bragging about how much more money he had than the rest of us, which is insufferable after a while. Okay, Harry, we know you're fucking rich. And what was great about Harry's arrival at our house was it came in conjunction right around the time, coincidental with the time that the Lions game would begin. And so you'd be saying to yourself, okay, I'll watch the first quarter of this dreadful Lions game, which I'm talking circa mid-60s here. Oof. And, you're watching the Lions just get drubbed into the ground. I think they lost like 5 in a row, all by wide margins when I was a kid. And now they're no longer dreadful, but it was a perfect opportunity to go outside and throw the football around before you were going to sit down to this giant Thanksgiving meal. But I have led the league in blown Thanksgiving dinners, Louis, and you know about this. It started when my dad decided that he wasn't going to use the stove anymore. And my mother, I don't know why she had this thing about not having the kitchen change one bit from the time they bought the house. I think she was worried about the resale value at a time where it should have been of little concern. And so he microwaved the turkey, which was a disaster. It was almost like when Ron Popeil had the rotisserie oven and he had the ad for it, and they would start out, they would put a couple of little Cornish game hens in there, and they came out great. And then he would have something a little larger, like maybe a rotisserie chicken, and that came out great. And then finally, he ended up the commercial by shoving a whole live wild boar. Results there were not as favorable. I mean, it's not like you were going to get that one by Gordon Ramsay. So my dad microwaved everything that particular year, and it was a complete disaster. Inedible food, and we had to kind of just sit there and suffer our way through it, and not to, lay any more indignity on my father for the mistake that he made. Everybody just sat there and said, "Yeah, it's pretty good." We were all glowing. I mean, it looked like the entire family was ensconced in day-glow paint. It was that ugly. And then I tried to fry a turkey once. Have you ever done that, Louis?
No, that scares the crap out of me.
Yes, I mean, perhaps I should have seen this as an ominous sign when there's an inundation of ads on TV and PSAs on TV from various people in the fire department, police departments, and don't ever do this. And they have a guy with a rope dropping a turkey into a vat of hot oil in one of those little cylindrical turkey fryers, outdoor fryers. And the minute that turkey hits the thing, sparks fly. You would think you were, somewhere in the Ukraine, and unfortunately, immersed in the middle of an ugly war. So the house catches fire. It's just inadvertent ugliness, and so I had a fried turkey one time, a turkey fried for me by some people, and when we got to the Thanksgiving dinner, everything's on the table. Everything looks pretty good. The turkey itself looked pretty good. And then we take one slice of the turkey, completely raw on the inside.
Oh,
Next thing you
geez.
know, it's like, okay, everybody in the car, we're going to Denny's. What do you mean they're closed? Blown Thanksgiving dinner number two, and then the ugliest of the three that I can remember was I was with a girl and we were in Las Vegas before Thanksgiving, and we were not particularly having a great time getting along. And so I had stopped just short of buying her a plane ticket. I think the cost was prohibitive at the time for a one-way plane ticket from Vegas to South Florida, and it was going to cost me $1,000 to send this woman home a day early.
Oh, God.
And she wanted to go too. Yeah, she was all for it. But I figured, okay, look, we can tough it out for one more day here, and then unfortunately we'll go back together. Uh, Before that, though, she had invited her family over to my house for Thanksgiving dinner. And so we had one of those truce agreements, kind of like they're negotiating now. Well,
Mm.
unfortunately, not with the same stakes involved, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where he said, okay, we're just going to act like we're okay, have the family over, and we'll have Thanksgiving dinner. Well, that never works out. You know that. It's like going out for dinner with your ex wife. So she was going to cook a turkey at her place, bring it over to my place to help accommodate the need for the extra bird for the people that were coming over, and I was going to make one. Now, I'm not a good chef, but I'm not terrible. I was very
Yourself.
good at making turkeys.
Yeah, yourself.
And this woman was very adept in the kitchen. I mean, she made a lot of wonderful things while we were getting along well together, and that was one of the favorable aspects of our relationship was going to her place for dinner. But sure enough, she cooks a turkey, and it's an absolute brick with the worst results I've ever seen on a turkey. So now we're eating mine, and the family is complimenting me on the great job that I did. And this woman's name was Rachel, and they turn to her and go, well, geez, Rachel, yours didn't come out so well. Now,
No.
we already hate each other. So, hate's a strong word.
I think hate's probably the right word. The way the story goes.
So I lived on a house on a canal on the water here in Fort Lauderdale, in the Fort Lauderdale area, Pompano Beach, actually. And what happens? She gets so angry that her family had turned against her that she picks up this. I mean, the turkey was basically ash. You would have thought that she had brought over the remains of one of her dead relatives in an urn. And she picks up the turkey and fires it at my head. I duck like Roberto Duran. I did one of those, and it goes straight into the canal. And the next thing we know, it was discovered floating with Alien Gonzalez somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Blown Thanksgiving dinners. But one good thing about Thanksgiving is that you have football, Lubie. And this
Yes.
is where I think there's going to be a problem this year because when you look at the three games that are on the slate,
Yeah.
does it not reek of chalk? Can you possibly go into the holiday thinking that I am going to bet all three favorites on Thanksgiving Day in some kind of a bizarre parlay
The
and
night
come out
games.
ahead?
The night game is the one where the spread's big enough and it's a winning team who's the underdog. The other games are abysmal. I don't know how you could not go uh, with the underdog in the Cowboy game and the Lion game. I mean, the spreads
The
are a little
Cowboys,
high. I mean,
yeah, they've destroyed their competition at
yeah,
home.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
winning by a margin. They're at 4-0 at home, the Cowboys this year, I believe. And in those four games, that they're averaging a 27.5 point margin of victory
Wow.
over their opposition. They take on the Commanders in the open. Well, that's not the open. That's the middle game on Thursday. The
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cowboys and the Commanders. The Commanders traded away two of their better defensive players in kind of a mid-season sell-off. They were okay, competitive in a lot of games this year. Ron Rivera is one of our favorite people, a very humble guy. We've met him several times on Radio Row opportunities at Super Bowl games. And he's one of those guys that you really like because what was the most impressive thing? No entourage, Luby. It's not like he comes in there like Tim Tebow and you're thinking, what is there, a Prince concert going on here? Oh, no, it's Tebow. What did Tebow do in his career? I know he was a great collegiate quarterback, and you could give him all the accolades that you want. He won the Heisman Trophy. He was a championship quarterback. He's got a national championship. But as a pro, he was a complete bust.
Sucked. He's one of the worst quarterbacks.
Was he the kind of pro that would end up having an entourage surrounding him? I hardly think so. But remember, he had more people around him than Joe Namath would, or
Montana, Rice.
That was a great celebrity.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was just bizarre to see, and yet, I mean, when you look at this Cowboys-Commanders game, the Commanders have lost twice to the Giants, who only have 3 wins this year, and the last time they were beaten by Tommy DeVito, not Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito, but close. Tommy DeVito, the name of the guy that Joe Pesci played in Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Funny how. Maybe that's one of the signals they use, like Peyton Manning used to call out, Omaha, Omaha. You think Tommy DeVito's going to yell out at some point? That would be classic, wouldn't it?
That'd be great.
If he just started screaming out, funny how. And then you saw some guys go in motion. You're like, what the fuck? What is this? But the Commanders, how much opposition can they really offer up to the Cowboys? So if you start with the Lions game, and are you willing to lay 7.5 with the Lions against the Packers? The Packers suck. They're as boring a team as you could possibly put on TV. I mean, this is an example where it's history in reverse. You used to hate watching the Lions because they were terrible for years and years and years. And now you're looking forward to seeing the Lions just to see if Dan Campbell will eat a live turkey before the game to inspire his team. Just put a whole bird in his mouth. Say, this is what we got to do, guys. We got to go out there and eat them up like a Thanksgiving dinner. Things still gobbling. Campbell, no problem with that. I mean, this is a man's man. But the Lions appear to be much better on paper than the Green Bay Packers. So you're already laying 7.5 there. You're saying be careful about that?
Well, that's the one. If we want to pick an upset in those 2 games, I guess it's at least 7 and a hook. Whereas the Cowboy games is like 11. Like, I don't even know it. I wouldn't even touch that game. Like, that's just, and the Commanders suck.
Should be the first quarter spread, shouldn't it? The Cowboys spread 11. And the first, I still would be reluctant to take the Commanders. They'll be down 14-0 in 3 minutes.
I wouldn't go Commanders. I just wouldn't touch it. I don't know. That's a big spread. It's Thanksgiving. Weird shit happens. Like, I don't know. That's a big spread.
How could this be? And then the 49ers are laying 6 and a hook against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, you say it's at 7 now.
Yeah, I saw 7, and that's the one I could go dog, because Seahawks have played pretty well. They're 6-4. It's a division game. They're actually only a game out of the division. Geno Smith should be okay. They have a decent enough defense. I think the Niners will win, but that's the game where the spread's big enough, the game's close enough. I could see going dog.
One of the most feared weapons in the history of my lifetime was the so-called chalk sock. I don't know if people are familiar with that. I've mentioned it many times. It was very popular when I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn around Halloween. And at other times where you would get those giant, thick chalk sticks, and then you would grind them up and put it inside of a sock. And now, so it's a weapon of sorts where you would, go ahead and smack somebody with it. And it was like the early version of the paintball gun. In fact, I would imagine it was, a derivative, the paintball gun was a derivative of the chalk sock. Some kid that had a wild experience with chalk socks finally said, hey, let me put some coloring into a gun. And that became a very popular thing. So people had the chalk sock. And if you got hit with it, it was like, shit, how am I going to get this stuff off of me? Are people going to get hit with a chalk sock on Thanksgiving Day? That's my big fear about this year's holiday, that all of the handicappers that I'm following are picking the favorites in all 3 games on Thanksgiving Day, which we know it's ringing death. You may as well just choke on a turkey bone as have all 3 favorites on Thanksgiving Day. But are you inclined to do that? I mean, which of the games looms? You're saying Seattle.
I said Seahawks. I can see Seahawks.
Best chance of an upset.
They're well coached. It's a division game. They're at home. They're the home team getting 7 points or 6 and a hook. I would go there. If you're making me pick a dog, I would actually probably not touch any of these games. But if you're making me pick a dog, I'd pick Seattle, because they set up the best for an upset, quote unquote.
All right, Cowboys laying 11 against the Commanders. Seems like a gimme.
Yeah, I go Cowboys.
Lions laying 7 and a hook against the Packers. The hook. might be the
Yeah.
problem there. But the Packers haven't done anything this year.
No.
They've been just decidedly weak. I know last week they covered a point spread, but outside of that, there's very little reason to have faith in the Green Bay Packers. Are they bringing back Fuzzy Thurston or something? I mean, what am I missing about this game? Just trying to get off to a good start here for the holiday season. We need to make a little Christmas money here on Thanksgiving. And then Lubie's recommending this is our play of the century. Seahawks getting points against the 49ers, who have been hammered by the odds makers with rather lofty, almost incomprehensible, spreads that they have to overcome. And even last week, they fell short by a point, laying 14, and they only won the game by 13 against a hapless Tampa Bay team. Going to be a great weekend of football, though. We have a lot of stuff coming up on Friday. The Dolphins, our hometown team, in action against the New York Jets. Just wanted to touch on this before we get out of here and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving on No Filter. This Tim Boyle stuff. Tim Boyle. Is this the worst resume you've ever seen submitted by anybody to do anything? If you were applying for a job at Denny's, you would not be able to get a job as a busboy with this resume. Unbelievable. Tim Boyle, as a collegian, undrafted in 2017, 3 years at UConn, 19 games, 1 TD, 13 picks, 11 games at Eastern Kentucky, 13 interceptions against 12 touchdowns. Then he has appeared in 11 games with the Packers as the backup to Aaron Rodgers. That was during 2019 and 20, and he had a total of 4 pass attempts. He made 3 starts in his NFL career with the Lions. All 3 of his NFL starts were with the Lions in 2021. 0-3, 3 TDs, 6 picks, and they completed 65% of his passes, 175 yards per game. Hardly the kind of lofty numbers you would think would trigger a turnaround by the Jets against the Dolphins. And he appeared in 1 game for the Bears last year, completing 2 of 8 attempts and 2 interceptions. This is what the Jets are offering up, and they're only getting 10 points against the Miami Dolphins on Friday. Another one that looks like Chalk City, my friend. But hardly the kind of stuff that would be distinguishing for a quarterback. So we're looking at what? Chalk, 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 chalk. Jayhawk. All right, that's probably an ugly approach to the holidays, but that's our handicapping expertise for today here on No Filter. Lubie, you have a great Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We'll be back with you guys again on Monday on NoFilter.net. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, and thank you, people, for following us here and on our other platforms, including the Tony Bruno Sports Network, where we appear from 10 to 12 Eastern, and we're going to make another attempt at putting on a great show for you today, later on today. If you get a chance, download that app, and you can catch that. And the great Tony Bruno, of course, who appears here on NoFilter.net. Turn us on to No Filter is also a big staple of that, as you might imagine, since it is his own network. Have a great holiday, everybody. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll catch you next time. Catch you Monday on our next edition of the Morning Briefing here on NoFilter.net.